In 1632, Eriskind tried robbing a man of his cloak. Though he was armed, he was unsuccessful. He was therefore caught, arrested, and finally sentenced to death. This type of execution wasn't uncommon at the time, and Eriskind's story would have definitely been forgotten if it wasn't for Rembrandt. Indeed, one of art history's most famous and acclaimed artists painted Kind, but here's the catch. Rembrandt painted Kind after his execution. He painted his body while it was being publicly dissected. Today, we're looking at the anatomy lesson of Dr. Nicolaes Tulp. Indeed, the public dissection on the dead body of an executed man happened once a year in Amsterdam. The event was hosted by the Amsterdam Guild of Surgeons, and it served many purposes, the main one being that it helped spread knowledge about anatomy, hence the title of this painting. But there's another reason, and this one is a lot less noble. It served as an added punishment, just in case getting executed wasn't enough. Being told that your corpse would be displayed and then gradually cut up into pieces in front of an audience was humiliating. Another reason for this public dissection is that it simply was a social event. This type of event was only organized once a year, and anybody who was anybody was there. Even René Descartes was rumored to be at this very specific anatomy lesson. The beginning of the 17th century was also called, in the Netherlands, the Dutch Golden Age. It saw the emergence of a middle class which made these types of social gathering quite popular. Science and reason were also starting to emerge in intellectual circles, giving popularity and power to different guilds, such as the Guild of Surgeons, who commissioned this painting. The rise of the middle class meant that paintings weren't commissioned by the church anymore, even less so considering that the Netherlands weren't Catholic after the 16th century Protestant Reformation. Paintings were now commissioned by upper and middle class people, and this painting is a great example of that. It was commissioned by the Amsterdam Guild of Surgeons, which had at its head Dr. Tulp, who you see here with 7 students. The names of each student are on this list. Rembrandt was commissioned to paint a portrait of these surgeons at the young age of 25, and the final result must have left the surgeons speechless. If you look at prior group portraits of anatomy lessons, they are made in a very formalized way. The osteology lesson of Dr. Sebastian Egberts is a great example of this. These are individual portraits with little to no engagement with the situation in which they are. The artist could have very well painted individual portraits of men, stitch them together, and then paint a skeleton in the middle to call it an osteology lesson. Here, Rembrandt is painting a moment in which every character plays a different role. The range of emotions and reactions is much wider in Rembrandt's portrait. The triangular composition is also much more dynamic. Lines lead both to Dr. Tulp and to the book at the bottom right of the canvas, this book probably being Fabric of the Human Body, published in 1543 by Andreas Vesalius. You can also see, of course, Rembrandt's signature mastery of light. There's a sharp contrast between the white corpse of Eriskind and the surgeon's dark clothes. This painting, however, doesn't really depict how the anatomy lesson of January 16, 1632 actually happened. First, the audience was much larger than it is depicted here, but again, Rembrandt could be painting the scene from a viewer's perspective. Second, the doctor wouldn't be performing the dissection himself, he'd have an assistant do it for him. Here, Dr. Tulp performing the demonstration himself isn't accurate, but it's a great way to symbolically show that he's the professor. Third, a public dissection would have started in the abdomen because those are the parts that decompose the fastest. Perhaps Rembrandt made the scene more appealing by keeping the corpse's stomach closed. In 1656, Rembrandt painted another anatomy lesson, this time hosted by Dr. Tulp's successor, Dr. Damon. This painting was sadly damaged in a fire in 1723, but the most important part of it was saved. Here we see the doctor dissecting a brain, and you see, a bit more accurately, how gruesome public dissections could really be. So there are many different interpretations for this painting, the first one being the most simple. This is exactly what it looks like, a portrait of Dr. Tulp as commissioned and nothing more. But of course, art historians are always trying to find an extra something to these masterpieces. It's sometimes hard to believe that an artist would spend so much time on an artwork and not give it a deeper meaning. Another interpretation focuses on the subject of the painting, not on Dr. Tulp and not on Eriskind, but on Eriskind's hand. This painting's theme would be hands. The hand is the object of study in this anatomy lesson. Rembrandt illustrated the lesson by very graphically depicting the inside of a hand, but he also showed the way hands work. Dr. Tulp is about to pull a muscle, and he's demonstrating with his left hand how the hand will react. Basically, Rembrandt is showing us a hand before and after a muscle's contraction. Hands are also notoriously important for surgeons, as their hands need to be steady when performing, for example, a dissection. Eriskind also had his right hand cut off before getting hanged, a symbolic punishment for thieves. Rembrandt had initially painted Eriskind without his right hand, but then painted it. Finally, there is the artist's hand, without which this very painting wouldn't exist. The final interpretation is a class analysis of the situation. The scene is depicting privileged men, or we could say the bourgeoisie, dissecting someone from the rabble. Amsterdam in January can get cold, and Eriskind, who we can only assume was poor, was probably trying to steal a cloak to warm himself up. We can also assume that the person he was stealing the cloak from was from the upper class, considering the severity of the punishment. This public dissection could be seen as the bourgeoisie signaling to the common folk to not mess with them, or else they could have their hands cut off, get hanged, and finally have their bodies dissected in front of a crowd. But this is more an analysis of the situation than an analysis of the painting, and I doubt, unless proven otherwise, that Rembrandt had a particular interest in defending the rabble from the bourgeoisie, his patrons. But this interpretation, even though Rembrandt didn't intend it, can still make us learn a thing or two about the advent of scientific progress. Scientific progress during the second millennium has often been done with great sacrifice coming from working class people. This progress has come at the expense of the vulnerable. How many died working in miserable conditions to give the upper class the necessary leisure time to develop new technologies and acquire more knowledge? How many died working in factories to increase production to a point where now things can almost be fully automated? If Dr. Tulp's anatomy lesson can teach us one thing, it isn't anatomy, but the countless and anonymous men and women who had to die for us to be as scientifically advanced as we are now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned this week because I'll release a video announcing something which I'm very excited about. And as always, I'd like to thank all my wonderful patrons on Patreon. If you want to join them, check out patreon.com/thecanvas.